All right, and we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the second part of the show, we are now going to talk about Justin Herbert and whether or not he's overrated. Because I feel like, again, that's something that I've seen a lot on social media as well. Um, Definitely a guy that has received some criticism. And, for me, I mean, listen, I think the guy is super talented. I just do. You could see that he is I think he's a franchise quarterback. I mean, and a lot of people think that. I think he is one of the best quarterbacks, one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. Um, but I think the knock on him is, some of his losses over, his first few seasons. And I think that's kind of hurt him. Because I look at him and he's super talented. But, with some of the losses that he's had over the years, that's where that comes from. And especially the other night, again, against Dallas, where he simply did not play well. Some of that could be the cause of, the injury that he's dealing with right now in his non-throwing hand. Um, but I don't know. I mean, it depends on what people say. Like, if people say he's the best quarterback in the NFL, I mean, that's just simply not true. But I don't know, like what makes him overrated. Is it that people? I think it's because now one of the things that I would say is when I look on social media, a lot of the comments, say how he doesn't get a lot of criticism, but Dak Prescott does. And I understand. You know what? I understand that because I think a lot of times you look at, you know, um, some of these guys, and a lot of times there are, people on social media and people in general, they kind of pick and choose on who they like. And for some people, for some players, no matter what they do, in the eyes of the people on social media and others, they whatever they do wrong, they do no wrong according to those people. But the players they don't like, they're always going to be on top of them and criticizing them. Now, I will say, Dak Prescott has received a lot of criticism the last couple of seasons, turning the ball over a lot, and rightfully so. But I don't remember him receiving a lot of criticism his first couple of seasons when he was winning a lot of games. Now, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but when he was winning games and he was the offensive rookie of the year, he didn't receive criticism even when they lost the playoff game to the Packers. I mean, how much criticism did they really get? Dak Prescott's had really bad games when he was looked at as a really good quarterback. But I agree in the sense that people pick and choose on who they like. And I guess Justin Herbert, a lot of people look at him, they see that others look at him as the golden child and he can do no wrong. But listen, I get it. I get it because listen, that playoff game against the Jags last year, that was really bad. That was bad. You were up, what was it? Was it 27-0, 27-3, whatever it was, and you blow that lead? Let's actually go back to that because I need to refresh my memory with that game. But yeah, you have that huge lead, right? And you let that slip away. Yeah, so it was so after the first half, it was 27-7. Okay. Yeah, and then the Jags, they outscored them 24-3 in the second half. Not good. Not good. I mean that's where that criticism comes from. Obviously a couple years ago, between the last game of the regular season between, the Chargers and the Raiders. Raiders ended up winning and going to the playoffs. Now, obviously, if those two teams tied, they both would have won, and the Steelers would have missed the playoffs that year, which probably would have been better off because the Steelers really didn't deserve to make it. Again, my dad's a Steelers fan, but let's be honest. The Steelers, that year, they kind of had no business making the playoffs that year. No disrespect to them, but hey, T.J. Watt had a touchdown in that playoff game, and they were up 7-0, but not that really mattered. But you know, it's I mean, really, you look at the playoff game against the Jaguars. I mean, that's why a lot of people are like, well, if he's really talented, then how did he, you know, choke that big of a lead? But I think you also have to look at, obviously, he has the talent around him to succeed. He does. Austin Eckler and Keenan Allen. Of course, Mike Williams is hurt. But, you know, I mean, he's got the talent around him. And you're like, why are they only 2-3? You know, they should have a better record than this. I mean, week one, they got into a shootout with the Dolphins. They could have won that game. I mean, they could have won the game the other night. Who else did they play this year? Gotta go back and look. Gotta refresh my memory once again. But, you know, I mean, the Dolphins game was a high-scoring game. I mean, they what was it, 36 to 34, 37-34? It was something like that. You know, it was a high-scoring game. Yeah, 36 to 34. Yeah, then they lost to the Titans, 27-24. But in that game, Herbert threw for over 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. You know, and then they lost in overtime to the Titans, who aren't very good. But had a good game there. I mean, he puts up the stats. You know, it's just, you know, people look at some of the big losses that he's had. He's got the talent around him, but does he have the right coach, though? I mean, look at what Brandon Staley has done. You know, the over-aggressive mindset has really killed the Chargers. It has. I mean, you got to look at, you know, some of the games that, you know, Brandon Staley has, you know, his decision-making has kind of led to the Chargers losing games. It's not because of Justin Herbert. You know, does he get some of the blame for the playoff loss, or is it all on Herbert? Now, does Herbert deserve some of the blame? Absolutely. Absolutely. But let's not forget, I mean, what this coach does, and, you know, has them go for it on fourth down in, like, their own territory, like, deep in their own territory. And if they don't get it, I mean, it almost cost them the game against the Vikings this year. So they're 2-3. They could easily be 1-4 right now. But is that on Justin Herbert, or is that on the coach if they lose that game? Now, again, I think he does deserve a lot of the blame for the playoff loss, but I mean, I think it's also the head coach is kind of holding them back too. I mean, the Chargers defense too. They give up a lot of points and a lot of yards. You know, Herbert's got to, I mean, now the defense did play well the other night. But, you know, there's also that too. Listen, I don't think he's overrated. I really don't. For me, I don't think he's overrated. Now, do I think that, you know, down the line, could that be possible, you know, to come back to this discussion and say that? Yeah, I mean, listen, the guy's in his fourth year? Yeah, I mean, I think he should have some playoff games, you know, playoff wins to his resume. You know, that's got to happen. That's got to happen this year. But right now, you don't know. I mean, this could be one of those years the Chargers, you know, they lose a lot of close games and they miss the playoffs. I mean, that's happened. That's happened in years past. But I won't say he's overrated, but I do agree with the fact that people pick and choose on, you know, who they criticize and who they don't. Because, listen, every player at times is going to deserve criticism. You know, like, but, you know, some deserve it more than others. Some don't get any. I mean, I think, but I thought some of the most ridiculous things was last year when, you know, Emmanuel Acho said that Justin Herbert is a social media quarterback. They like to use that on Fox because now Colin Cowherd is saying it about Justin Fields being a social media quarterback, which honestly can't really disagree with that because But it's just weird. Or a YouTube. Somebody else said a YouTube quarterback, or did Colin say a YouTube quarterback? I don't know. It was one of the two. A YouTube quarterback, yeah, because you like, oh, look at the highlights. But that's what they were saying about Herbert is, oh, he'll have that one amazing throw, and you're like, wow, that was amazing. He's great. But then you look at some of the other throws he made during the game, and you're like, that's not so great. I mean, the interception on the final on their final possession against the Cowboys, that was bad. That was bad. Every quarterback makes bad throws. He's not the only one. But now, like, when people say he's overrated, does that mean, like, he's, people think he's better than he actually is? Because, listen, you see the talents there. Because some of the throws he makes are incredible. I mean, I look at him and he's a franchise guy. He's one of the best. I think he is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. But when you look at his, like, some of the losses that he's had over the years and no playoff wins, I mean, that's where the overrated discussion comes into play. And when he makes a throw like that at the end of the game against Dallas, that's where that comes into play. So I understand why people believe that. For me, I don't think he's overrated. I think he is a great quarterback. And I think he needs a better head coach. I mean, do people think Brandon Staley's a good coach? No, I don't think so. People want him out of there. And a rumor that was going around, and I think I might have mentioned it, I don't remember, earlier this week. Speaking of head coaches, when we come back from our second break of the show, we are actually going to talk about, is this Bill Belichick's last year in New England? So, yeah, the Justin Herbert discussion, him being overrated, might need a different head coach. Is Bill Belichick that guy? Now, a lot of people are probably going to be like, no, absolutely not. But I only did that transition there because of the rumors that, hey, maybe he goes to the Chargers. But listen, like, you keep Kellen Moore there. Bill Belichick works on the defense. I mean, I think the Chargers get better, right? Right? I mean, he is arguably the greatest head coach of all time. So, but I don't know. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Is Justin Herbert overrated or not? Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. But yeah, so when we get back from our second break, we'll talk about Bill Belichick and whether or not this could possibly be his last year coaching the Patriots or maybe coaching in general. But again, before I go to break, I just want to remind you guys, obviously, commenting in the chat, your comment might get lost depending on how many people are in the chat, so I might not necessarily get to it. So, to do a super chat and get your comment recognized, by donating or tipping, again, that's, what a super chat is. You go to streamelements.com/gsmcsportsnetwork./tip. And again, that really helps the show. It helps us out. It makes our show even better. Give you guys the best content we possibly can give out, broadcasting these shows. So it helps, everybody wins with that. And then also, just want to remind you guys, for the bonus coverage materials that are not covered by this live broadcast, also make sure to go to patreon.com and search up GSMC Sports Network to find all of our exclusive content up on there as well. Not just my podcast, but the other podcasts on the Sports Network, GSMC Sports Network as well. So with that, we are going to take our second break of the show, and then when we come back, we will discuss Bill Belichick and whether or not this could possibly be his last year coaching in New England. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.